Hi and welcome to PlayStation Plus One. Today is the first for me. I'm actually doing a live broadcast since moving to my new place and getting a new internet connection that's actually capable of running this. So today we're going to kick off with a live gameplay commentary of Gundam vs. Extreme on PlayStation 3. It's a kind of arcade 2 versus 2 fighting game that was released for the PlayStation 3 probably about 2 years ago. Published by Bandai and is kind of part of a long-running Gundam vs. Extreme game. So I've already kind of done a couple of videos, arcade commentary kind of one by one, playing various kind of mobile suits, but I've never done a live complete arcade playthrough. So the idea is to kind of try that and see where we go, and also kind of talk about Gundam in general. As I guess most people in the West, I was introduced to Gundam via the Cartoon Network when they used to have that slot back in the early 2000s, and Gundam Wing kind of premiered there with things like Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, etc., etc. And for some reason, this particular show, anime, kind of caught my attention, more than the others anyway. Well, that and Dragon Ball Z, I guess, but whatever. We're talking about Gundam now. This game in particular pits various different Gundam mobile suits, the mecha in the game, against each other, so you can pick through the original 0079 original Gundam series here, as you can see, all the way through Zeta, Double Zeta, the film, then Gundam F91, V Gundam, G Gundam, etc., etc. Pretty much goes up in towards the first episode of Gundam Unicorn, so it's fairly recent. There was an update to this game called Gundam vs. Extreme Full Boost that was, I think, came out late or early actually this year in Japan. So actually no, not this year, it was last year, 2013. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to just choose the, I think this is the RX-80, I want to say. I always get confused if it's the RX-79 or RX-80. I know one of them is the gun cannon, and someone actually pointed it out, whoever that was, thank you. But yeah, we're going to keep it nice and easy, try and get to the end, so we'll stick to the main route. As you can see here, the scene select allows you to choose your route throughout the kind of game. Get a nice little intro depending on which Gundam you chose, kind of from that particular Universal Century or Universal Calendar, whatever it is. So that's nice. And so as you'll kind of see in the setup here, 2 versus 2, we've got a Zaku on our side, and we're going to be against 2 others. So you kind of play through the various different kind of stages. A lot of the stages are based pretty much all from some kind of epic battle throughout, like a Gundam kind of show, one of the episodes or so. So in terms of the controls of the gameplay, I said it was a 2-on-2 kind of fighting third-person action game, and it is, but it doesn't really play like a typical third-person shooting game, to be honest. You have, obviously you can move around with the D-pad or the analog stick, but you have a boost button, which is very, very important. And if you see on the bottom right there, as you see, because while I'm strafing, the boost kind of energy goes down, and it's really important that you kind of look at that, because when you overheat, you can't boost, and then that can leave you in a tight spot, so you need to be very careful with that. You have your main attack, like I'm using there, by pressing square. Oh, I got shut down, not great. You've got your main attack, and then you've got your melee attack, which is triangle, and then circle allows you to change whether you're targeting. So we've won this one very quickly, and I didn't get a chance to go through all of the controls, but basically the rest of the kind of the buttons on the controller are basically mapped and combination versions of your main attack, your melee, and your boost. So for example, I think if you press the main attack and the boost button, that is a different attack, basically. And so you have multiple attacks, and they're all kind of homages and completely on model to whatever that original Gundam had. So, you know, we've got our Buster Rifle for this particular Gundam, but we've also got the cannon, as you can see there. I think it's also got the head cannon on the head of the Gundam. We'll just show you here. No, that's not happening. Okay. And then there is the gun cannon, like, second attack for this particular Gundam, which is very useful at times. We're dying here. I didn't say that this was going to be a good playthrough. It was just going to be a playthrough, just so you know. So yeah. So in terms of this particular stage, I think this looks. Yeah, it's a Gundam Seed stage. And the reason why I can tell is because if you can see in the background, it's the kind of the main carrier, which I've already forgotten the name of. Yeah, what type of Gundam fan am I? If I don't even know the name of the Gundam Seed. I want to say White Base. No, White Base is the original one. Archangel. It's Archangel. That's what it is. Yeah. So I should probably be trying to focus to win this because it won't look good if I lose. So what I've just pressed there is actually your kind of special. Each character has this, and despite it not really making sense for each character or each suit having a special attack, you can boost up your attack. I think you're actually faster and you can do more moves a lot quicker when you're in this state. In the previous Gundam Versus games, this was, from what I can remember, and I could be wrong, this was only possible if you were a character who had the ability who had like a special ability. So if you don't know anything about the story of Gundam, we're boosting away from that, and we just got away. The story of Gundam in a lot of them is that you'll have kind of a set of kids or a set of protagonists or antagonists who will have kind of special abilities. So in the original Gundam, it was all about being a new type, which was basically psychic abilities. And actually, just from a historical standpoint, where that term new type comes from is post the Second World War and then the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Children who were born kind of during that point and then after were considered or called new types, kind of like the new generations. And so there was kind of talk about those who were kind of born around that time kind of having special abilities, the after effects of that nuclear basically attack. So that's where that term comes from. Anyway, so it kind of makes sense with some of these characters to kind of have that attack. In this game though, even the characters who are just kind of bog standard seem to have some kind of heightened state. Not that it matters, you know, it's just nerd stuff. But, you know, we're going to point this stuff out. So we are now seem to be facing one of the Gundam Seed Ashtray characters, the one we just took out there. So as you can see, yeah, they've even kind of put in mobile suits that are like mobile suits that you may not even be aware of. I think those characters started off in a side story manga, and then I think they got introduced very briefly, maybe in Gundam Seed Destiny, or something like that. Can't remember. So you can see we're also facing against the Gundam from the feature film, the first, I guess, the feature film after the Gundam movie trilogy, which was Char's Counterattack, I would say. Which was originally, I guess, considered to be one of the greatest anime films for a while, and this was mostly during the time when people hadn't really seen it. Same thing with Zeta Gundam, actually. One of those shows that everyone said, oh, this is the greatest anime shows ever, and then people actually watched it, or people probably still didn't watch it, and then said, it's not that great. I actually watched all the way through Zeta Gundam. And if I'm completely honest, I have no idea what was going on. There were some really cool bits, really cool characters, but it wasn't as engaging or as interesting, I think, as probably Gundam Seed, which was supposed to be kind of, I guess, the remake series of the original Gundam. That said, the remake series of, I guess, quasi remake series of Zeta Gundam, which was Gundam Seed, Destiny, was awful, and that was worse than Zeta Gundam. And that's not to say that Zeta Gundam was bad at all. I just think of all the Gundam series, it probably could have benefited the most from a movie trilogy, and it did. But I hear that the Gundam movie trilogy for Zeta Gundam wasn't that great. Again, I haven't seen it. It's one of those things that I should probably go out and see, because I did go out of my way to buy every single volume of the original Gundam, the Zeta Gundam DVD. And as you can tell by my accent, I'm British, so that means that I would have to, or what I had to do was import those individual discs. That shows you how dedicated I am as a fan. But then I kind of got out. I didn't really. It wasn't a show that I felt that was that had like a long-lasting effect, apart from the last few episodes. And spoilers. No, actually, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it because I think it is a show worth seeing. I think it's up to you whether or not you think it's good. So I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it has, I think, a very cool ending that I hear is then altered in the movie trilogy of it. So anyway, I should probably be talking more about the game than just Gundam in general. I'm slowly just kind of getting through it. For those who aren't aware of that background, I think this level's from G Gundam, which was kind of the... I think at the time, I remember when I was just getting into anime in the kind of the early 2000s and so, and I was trying my best to kind of find out more about Gundam. Because like I said, I started off with Wing, and so it was very, very hard to go back and watch other shows, because at the time, Gundam Wing was probably like one of the newest of the Gundam series, I guess. What was after Gundam Wing? I guess it was After War X or something, which I've never seen, and so I hadn't seen then, so I guess for me to then go back, the only options were the Universal Century stuff, or things like G Gundam. And so I kind of opted for the Universal Century stuff because G Gundam just came across as too, I guess, super robot-y, as opposed to real robot, which is fine, you know. I don't mind the Mazen Kaiser stuff, and I guess I'm a big fan of Giant Robo, but I just wasn't feeling it, and so I've never really to this day even gone back to watch that show, and so I know it's had a little bit of a renaissance, so I should really give it a chance. The problem is with Gundam, and I feel like I kind of did this after I felt like this after the whole Zeta Gundam, buying every individual disc, was that I just felt that Bandai, I guess it was Bandai Visual who was doing the release of that in the US, they just didn't really care about the consumer. And so I bought a couple of the anime bricks, the ones that came in bricks, like the OS team, which is actually one of the best Gundam series. I think I bought Stardust Memory, which isn't so great. and stuff. And actually, I think those were Anime Classics, so I don't know if they come under Bandai Visual. Doesn't matter. But the problem was that, you know, then you'd get shows like kind of G Gundam, and I think now it's been released as an Anime Classic where you can get it in an entire brick. But the problem for me is that I'm a bit of a visual guy, and so now I'd really like to see that on Blu-ray and kind of, you know, get the most out of it, because despite what people think of Gundam Wing, and you know, I'm open about it, I know that it's not the greatest of shows, but it's an entertaining show for me. I went back and I bought what was released in the UK, which was they released a remastered edition on DVD. It wasn't a Blu-ray version, but I think it was from a high definition source that was released in Japan. So, you know, I think things like that would be great, because I think what people don't realise, when I say people, I guess licensors, especially outside of the UK, or outside of Japan, I should say, is that anime fans, especially dedicated anime fans, and anime fans who are of a certain age, have a high disposable income, typically, or a higher disposable income. And so they're willing to pay and double dip in buying kind of shows, because they're nerds. Let's face it, they're nerds, and I mean that in the nicest of ways. I mean, they're, you know, we're people who will quite happily buy a show multiple times if it's got that added commentary or it's got something of real interest. I personally have never done that, because I think that's a bit too far. But I think if there was like a Blu-ray release of the Gundam movie trilogy, the original Gundam movie trilogy, I would buy that in a heartbeat. And I already own that. I had to import that because I don't think they had it in the UK at the time. So I would quite happily buy that. And because it's a film transfer, I'm pretty sure it will hold up in terms of a Blu-ray remaster. I mean, you look at something like The Wings of Honeyarmors and what else was kind of more recently put on Blu-ray that's old? Pat Labor. Those look awesome. Those look really, really good. So, yeah, I think that's kind of missing a trick. But again, I digress. I'm kind of ending up talking more about Gundam. So you'll see that we've kind of reached like a mini boss in between the arcade mode. I have no idea who this boss is from. I think it's obviously from one of the later Gundams, just based off the art style from the kind of the character. I would guess it's 00. Just as I said, just because of that art style. But I haven't got a clue, to be honest. If there is anyone watching this, feel free to comment and say what exactly this is, because I haven't got a clue. Cool, so we're most definitely halfway through. And what I should say, actually, and I haven't really talked about this in terms of the game itself. I mean, I've talked about the mechanics, and actually we're more than halfway through. Sorry. So the one thing I haven't really talked about, I've talked about the mechanics, I've talked about what the game's like. I've kind of mentioned that it's part of an ongoing series. That is very, very popular in Japan. I mean, I was in Japan last year, actually. And this game is like one of the most popular games on the arcades, at least, anyway. And I know this sold really well when it was released. It got really good scores from Famitsu. And yeah, I guess I was there this time last year, actually. Wow, it's been a year. And the sequel to this, which is also available on the PS3, called Gundam vs. Extreme Full Boost, was at like every single one of the arcades that I went to. And very, very popular. That, and there was another game called Infinite Stratus, which was like it's kind of like a Japanese version of a third-person online game. But it also had elements of a light gun game where you kind of pointed to shoot, but you also had like a stick, like an analog stick, to kind of move your character. It was really, really weird. It kind of actually reminds me of the up-and-coming Freedom Wars games, actually. But anyway, again, I digress. so we were talking about this game and what else is, I think, important about it. And unfortunately, because I've been talking a lot, you probably haven't had a chance to listen to the soundtrack. The other reason why I'm talking over it is that the soundtrack is really good, but because it's all the licensed music from the shows, that would mean that you'd end up getting ads on this, and I don't really want you to kind of end up seeing advertising. Yes, so it's a very faithful licensed game, to be fair, and it's, I don't want to just say this just as a fanboy, but I think this series of games are probably one of the only most recent good licensing games. It's true to the series based off obviously the characters and the way how the mecha and the Gundams kind of feel. There's a real weight to kind of the bigger Gundam. So if you were to use something like the Double Zeta Gundam, compared to like the Gundam that we're using here, we lost. Don't worry. Then that Gundam feels heavier. Whereas if you use something that's a little bit more lighter, more nimble, then you can feel that. Some are better at flight than others. I mean, if you chose the heavy arms from Endless Wars from Gundam, that one's heavy. It's got a heavy payload, but it's kind of terrible, basically, in terms of its kind of boost or its flight capabilities, or kind of really actually anything at short distance. So, and that's kind of true to the mecha, to the Gundam, really. So it's completely on point for that point, in that regard. I was kind of mentioning the audio, like I said, music's all kind of licensed, taken directly from that particular anime, from that series, so you know that it feels authentic. From what I can tell, all of the voice actors, actresses, seiyus, whatever, are kind of directly, the voice cast from the original shows, so you can't get more authentic than that. And visually, this is a PS3 game, and I'm running this to capture via my PC. I'm running this via it's kind of running at 1080i on a big TV. It's on a 55-inch TV, and it still looks really, really good. And I think that's because they've nailed the art style of the mechs. And also it's got like a slight kind of cell-shaded look to it. It's got a little bit of a black outline. It just kind of makes it look a little bit more anime-like. I mean, the previous versions of the game didn't have the cell-shaded effect. And so it still looked good, but this kind of really makes it pop and makes it really visual. Or I should say, kind of aesthetically pleasing. So, I think that's just another thing to kind of appreciate about the game as an entire package. And I know we're just really playing the arcade mode, which is a very small portion of the game, although it is originally an arcade game. The whole meat of the rest of the game is actually the mission mode. And the mission mode is where you kind of go through and you kind of do various different challenges at different kind of difficulties, and it gets harder and harder and harder. And that's where the kind of the bulk of the gameplay comes. And also there's multiplayer, and there's actually an online mode. It must be probably the first ever Gundam versus game with an online mode, unless the PSP version of Gundam versus Gundam had it. I doubt it. But yeah, this is actually one of the first Gundam versus games to have an online mode. So I kind of tried it a couple of times, and that was when I had like a poor 2 megabyte connection. And it worked, and obviously the majority of people I was playing against was in Japan, so now that I've got like a 76 megabyte, whatever it is, connection, I'd be interested to test that. I'd be surprised, obviously, if anyone's still playing it now that the sequel's out, but still, maybe that would make an interesting video.